Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Friday, August 25th. We are back. We had a fun five-game slate yesterday. Oakland just crushed the slate, and now we are back to go over today's slate. So what we will be going over is we'll do a quick rundown of yesterday's perfect lineups, followed by the winning lineups on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And then we're going to jump into today's slate and the projected ownership, some pitchers to consider, followed by the stack projected ownership and stacks to consider. All right, and before we get fully into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos. Helps us a ton. One, it allows us an idea that we are doing what you guys want and giving you guys the content that you want. It also helps to feed that algo and allows us to give out all of the info for free. So please hit those buttons. Now, let's get into some fun. Let's get into these lineups and see what is going on for today. So, perfect lineup for yesterday. Kyle Gibson went nuts. Merrill Kelly went real nuts and just destroyed the slate. Oakland, we got a three-man stack there. Got a little Minnesota stack in there. It was quite the slate and getting different. Won people money yesterday. All right, so the winning was M. Warman 22, and he got a little different with pitching. He went Kelly and Williamson. Williamson only 11% owned and, had a pretty solid game. So it's not often that you see a winning lineup with pitchers from the same game. But once when these, slates get a little bit smaller and there's less chance of pitchers getting wins, that does and can happen. And stack-wise, we got four-man Oakland, three-man Texas, and a Minnesota player in there. Good old Royce Lewis, the phenom. A solid lineup construction. He got different. Oakland was lower owned than I would have expected, and as we talked about yesterday, Texas was a real nice leverage over a popular Pablo Lopez pitcher, and Texas got it done. So congrats to them, and now let's check out good old FanDuel. It also was a single entry that won on DraftKings, just so you guys know. All right, FanDuel-wise, Merrill Kelly took it down, two-man Baltimore stack, two-man Twins, two-man Oakland, so a lot of twos going there. And then the winning lineup had Merrill Kelly, had a three-man Oakland, two-man Texas, and three-man Minnesota. So nice little lineup there. They got it done. Nice little 3-3-2 combo. A lot of correlation. Nice lineup from Jamal Ginsburg. You are 20K richer. Congrats. All right. Let's get into today's slate a little bit here, shall we? All right. So, as always, projected ownership for pitching. Spencer Strider. I don't know how much more expensive this guy can get, but 12.8K is just getting insane. He's going to be 13K soon, but he is probably the only pitcher that deserves to be this high. 37% K rate is just insane. 3.11 FIP, 3.28 FIP over the last five. His K rate has came down a little bit, 32% over the last five, but look, nonetheless, this guy is great. He's an amazing pitcher. Combined K rate at 27%. There is no one that has more upside on this slate than Strider. However, at his price, you really need him to put up another 7-inning, say 10K, 1-2 earned run type game to make him really pay off and be a must-have for your DFS lineup. So that is the trouble here is does he really have another ceiling game? Very well could be. If you think he does, play him. It's a big enough slate that you're going to be able to find value on the hitters. And from what we've seen him against San Fran, he's really good. 7 innings, 10 Ks, 5 innings, 9 Ks. He got shelled a little bit last season, but that's going to happen to anybody at some point. So, Strider's great. Giants aren't that good. They strike out a lot. Makes sense to want to go there, but he is very pricey. Next, we got Dylan Cease, 9K. Oakland, not great versus righties. Low WOBA. They do hit the ball decently hard with a 163 ISO, but they strike out a lot. Cease has been a guy that typically has a pretty high K rate. His K rate has came down pretty significantly this year, though. Over the last 20 starts, only a 27% K rate. Over the last 5, only a 21% K rate. You know, when Cease is on, though, you're talking about one of the only guys on this slate that can go double-digit strikeouts or 10, 12, 13 strikeouts like Strider can. So I understand why he's being so high-owned. Our LineStar projection doesn't love him. 1.8x, 16 fantasy points. I do have to say, though, he is kind of interesting. I probably will have a little bit. I'll have a little of both these guys. Next, Kodai Senga. Senga, I think, is really interesting today. He's been pitching unbelievable lately, and he has a real high upside when he's on. 12 Ks versus Arizona, 9 Ks versus Philly, 12 Ks versus Tampa Bay. You know, this is a slate where when we have Strider on, we need to get some strikeouts, or else you got to play Strider. And on this slate, there's a lot of different ways to go to get strikeouts. Senga is one I think is very interesting. Angels strike out a lot, 27%. Shohei Ohtani did get hurt, but he should still be in the lineup. So, you know, this lineup is still going to be very dangerous. And the Angels do hit righties well, but they strike out a lot. So I think this is a very interesting spot. Easily could be a spot where, say, he goes 6 innings, gives up 2 or 3 home runs, but has 8 strikeouts and still makes him work. LineStar obviously likes him, 2.1x, 19-point fantasy projection. Cole Irvin, I think, is really interesting. He's super cheap, going against this just horrific Colorado Rockies lineup at home. Rockies are striking out 28%. Well, they have a low WOBA. This is one thing that I think is very, very interesting. The combined K rate for Cole Irvin is 28.2%. That is higher than Strider. Now, while he is not going to have double-digit strikeouts, at 5K, he very easily could rack up, 5-6 strikeouts and in turn be useful. One thing I do need to mention, he only went 77 pitches his last start. The start before that was only 67 pitches. So, maybe he gets up to 85 or something. But that could be enough to get it done for him at 5K. So he's interesting. Just understand, he's not going to be going 100-plus pitches. Brandon Pfaff is another one I think is very, very interesting. He's had a couple solid starts recently. Since being back up in the majors, he's been a much better pitcher. 3.15 FIP, 22% K rate. We got a 26.7% combined K rate on him at 5.6K. So I think he's in a very interesting spot. He is at home. Cincinnati strikes out a lot versus righties, so there is some upside here. It's just a question, can he limit runs? If he can limit some runs, he could be in a real good spot. So it's two, pretty nice little value pitchers there. I don't necessarily, with those values, you could definitely pay up and get Strider and still fill out a solid hitting lineup here. So you don't necessarily have to get away from Strider. But there's just a lot of different ways to go on this slate for pitching. Next, we got Brandon Woodruff versus the Padres. Padres are hit or miss, so they're either gonna put up 6 runs plus or put up 1 or 0. And Brandon Woodruff is a very good pitcher. He allows or he gets 26% more fantasy points at home. 3.6 FIP over his last 20. Solid K rate. I think it makes sense, and you could make a case to go to either side of this game. Padres are going to be really low owned, and Woodruff, 51% fly ball rate, 31% hard contact. He's allowing some good contact here. So I get it on either side of this. Woodruff as a pitcher is not one of my main focuses. And LineStar community is kind of telling you exactly what I said here. 3 people fading, 6 are liking it. So, next, we got Logan Wood. Look, this game total is only 7. Big part of that is that Strider's on the other side of the mountain, but Logan Webb has been way better at home, averaging 33% more fantasy points at home. Atlanta, don't get me wrong, is a amazing offense, but Webb has been pitching very, very well lately. 2.69 FIP over his last 5, FIP of 3 over his last 20. The dude is just good. He's much better at home. While I think his price is too high for his K rate, he still is interesting. Going this low owned, and if his K rate comes up for today, then money in the bank. All right, Bryce Miller next up. He's okay. He is nothing less than a pivot off higher owned guys. He does have a decent matchup versus the Royals. He's at home. There are some things going for him, and get it if you want to go to, but no priority. Yu Darvish versus Milwaukee. Look, when Yu's on, he's good, and he's been very good lately. 2.87 FIP over his last 5, 23% K rate. I don't mind going to some Yu at 8.5K and 2X. Bassett's another guy where when he's on, he's really on. He's averaging 36% more fantasy points at home. You can see pretty much all of his real big games this year have been at home. The Guardians don't strike out a ton, but 21% versus righties isn't bad. Don't mind going to Bassett. Just simply, he can have some really, really good games. And when he's on, his K rate, is very good. All right, let's talk about Hunter Green. Hunter Green's in a weird spot here. This is one where I could see you playing both sides of this. In his first start back from IL, he was awful. He got shelled. He gave up 8 earned runs, 9 runs total, 5 home runs, 90 pitches in 3 innings. But this is a guy that has a 32% K rate over his last 20 starts. It's against Arizona. Arizona is a much better offense versus righties. He's averaging 46% more fantasy points away. Now, I will say that's because his home is at Cincinnati. He allows, some hard contact, so he allows a little more home runs than most. Now, we're in a hitter-friendly ballpark, so, that average while away might be a little bit lower just because it still is a hitter-friendly ballpark that he's playing in. But there's just big-time volatility here. And I do not mind having some Hunter Green at super low ownership with big time upside. And I do not mind having some Diamondbacks versus a guy that just got off the IL and has struggled and gives up a lot of home runs. So it's a big time variant spot. I don't mind. One thing we haven't talked about is the weather. The Dodgers versus Red Sox is probably the scariest weather situation on the slate. Definitely try and pay attention to what's going there up into lock. Another thing is Lance Lynn apparently is not inconsistent as a Dodger. It is only 4 starts, but he has been very, very good. 3.84 FIP, 25% K rate. those numbers, I think you got to kind of consider him. Sonny Gray, another guy that's going low owned that has major upside. 2.32 FIP over his last 5 starts with a 30% K rate. He's been in 2 of 4 perfect lineups over his last 4 starts. Makes some sense going here, but it is a very good Texas offense that he is going against, thus low ownership. All right, let's get into FanDuel here. All right, Strider, highest owned. Dylan Cease next at 27%. Senega at almost 19%. Bryce Miller probably going a little high owned. Woodruff at 5%. Cole Irving super cheap at 5%. Hunter Green cheap at 8,900 and 3%. I think there's a lot of different ways we can go here on FanDuel. Pretty much everybody we talked about is absolutely in consideration. Definitely think a 7,500 Brandon Pfaff at 2% ownership is extremely intriguing, and I will probably have a lot of that. Bassett's cheap. He's in consideration. Cheap being ownership wise. So there's really a lot of different ways you can go with pitching today on FanDuel. Obviously, Spencer Strider is going to have the highest projection at everybody. All the ownership is going there. Also, you could very easily get different and save some salary to be able to pay up for some hitters today. I think it's a fun one. I really do like this Brandon Pfaff price on FanDuel. Gotta say that. All right. Stack time. All right. Here we go. Now it's going up. Because it took a little while to load, we'll just stay on the ceiling for now. All right, ceiling plays. We got Seattle versus Singer. Makes a little sense. Seattle's been hitting the ball really well. Singer is, a decent pitcher, but he can absolutely get blown up. When he's on, he's really good at limiting runs, but when he's off, he's really good at giving up runs. So I could see why you want to play Seattle there. Look, Braves are always a ceiling consideration. Logan Webb is very good, though, and better at home. The Phillies, I think, are a very interesting stack. They have a nice ceiling today. They're versus Mikolas, who gives up a lot of contact, and it's not always the best thing when you're in a ballpark that works good with power and a lineup that can definitely hit with some power. All right, so now let's go to projected ownership for these stacks. All right, so the highest projected own is the Dodgers. Make sure to check out weather before the slate starts, but they are in, one of the better hitting environments, better hitting ballparks, so the winds are blowing out. There's a lot going right for the Dodgers. Cutter Crawford is decent, but he can get blown up, and I'm not really scared of that Red Sox bullpen too much, so it makes a lot of sense. Baltimore, getting some ownership, but it's versus Kyle Freebaum, so it makes a lot of sense of everybody wanting to pick on him. He lets a lot of home runs go, lets some hard contact go, and this Baltimore offense can definitely make you pay with that. Cardinals versus Christopher Sanchez. Look, Sanchez has been really good lately, but his FIP is still 4.88. So I think he's been getting a little bit lucky and probably pitching a little better than his numbers are looking a little better than he really is. So with that being said, I think Cardinals do make sense. All right, now let's go to some projected ownership here. All right, so Dodgers, the Reds, like I said, with Brandon Pfaff and this Arizona-Cincinnati game, this game just has high volatility. Both pitchers could be lights out, have 7-8 Ks and 0 runs, or it could be an absolute shootout where the game ends, 7-6 or something like that. I want both sides of that game. If you're making, just one lineup, I think it is a good game to target. Just understand there is a lot of volatility with that game tonight. So Cincinnati makes sense. Brandon Pfaff, when he started his MLB career earlier this year, he wasn't very good. He's been good lately. So maybe he turns back into the guy that we saw earlier this season. Boston versus Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn has been an inconsistent pitcher. Somehow he's been very good for 4 starts straight with the Dodgers. Maybe that continues. Maybe he turns back into his inconsistency. And in that case, he's at home, or Boston's at home in a hitter-friendly park. Nice weather for hitting outside of, possibly rain. And so I think it does make some sense to go to Boston as well. Once again, check weather on that one when we get closer to lock. All right, so let's check the value stacks here. All right, so we got Cleveland versus Bassett. Look, I've talked about Bassett. When he's on, he's on. But when he's off, he's not very good at all. So almost 4.5 FIP over his last 5. Going cheap with some Cleveland stacks does make some sense here. It allows you to get Strider, allows you to get to some other, expensive bats that project well. So I'm not that surprised with them popping up. Milwaukee, Darvish is another pitcher that's been pretty inconsistent. Look, his FIP is 4 over the last 20, but yet over the last 5, it's 2.87. So makes some sense to go there. White Sox definitely makes sense. The one thing I do have to say here is everybody was on this Oakland White Sox game yesterday. Look, the temperatures were much warmer and wind was blowing out yesterday. So it played up to hitting a lot better than it does today. Now, A's pitching's bad. So you absolutely can go back to targeting the White Sox today. Just know the hitting conditions aren't quite as good as what they were yesterday. Pittsburgh versus Hendricks. I think you can pick on Hendricks, most times, and might as well versus an offense that can really get it going with Pittsburgh. Then we've already gone through ceiling, so we will just check to see if we missed anything here. All of those we've talked about. The Cubs. Look, Mitch Keller is a solid pitcher, but he does have off games, so it does make some sense to go there. And he gives up a lot of hard contact, 39% hard contact, 51 or 91 average exit velocity. If you're giving up those type of numbers, you can get got. So Pittsburgh's up there on implied total. Boston is. I think the Mets make some interest here. Sandoval's been a meh pitcher. And you got nice double-digit mile-an-hour winds blowing out in New York. So that definitely has some interest for, maybe a couple more home runs in that game. All right. Well, I think that will do it for us today. One of the things I will say as far as leverage, I wouldn't be picking on the Giants for leverage. I think I would go probably with the Oakland offense to pick on Dylan Cease for your leverage today, and not the Giants. If you are concerned about leverage with a 12-game slate, it's not as important. You can just kind of get a little different with some stuff instead of playing just the highest owned team versus highest owned pitcher. Lowest owned team versus highest owned pitcher. All right, guys, that'll do it for today. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next week. You guys have a good one. Adios.